Is Donald Trump showing signs of cognitive decline, or is something even more serious going on? That's a big question, especially when we're talking about someone holding the most powerful office in the world. And when someone's pushing 80, people start paying attention to how sharp they really are.
And I took a cognitive exam, and I would challenge anybody here to meet those marks because I have a perfect mark.
Over the past 8 years, there's been growing concern about Trump's behavior.
Some of what we're seeing is pretty extreme elements of his decline that are certainly suggestive of more serious impairment.
People close to him, and even those in his own family, have raised red flags. His niece, Mary Trump, a trained psychologist, hasn't been shy about voicing her opinion. In one of her blog posts, she brought up some pretty odd moments, like Trump cutting a Pennsylvania town hall short just to sit and listen to songs from Cats and Shrek for almost 40 minutes. Yes, seriously.
So play YMCA. Go ahead. Let's go. Nice and loud.
Here we go, everybody.
She also pointed to his performance at the Economic Club of Chicago, where he went off on long, confusing rants that, according to her, showed a major disconnect from reality.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff.
Experts have been weighing in, too. Harry Siegel, a senior lecturer in psychology at Cornell, explained that Trump's issues aren't just about bending the truth. Most politicians spin things a little, sure. But Siegel says Trump's pattern of dishonesty is so extreme, it could meet the criteria for sociopathic behavior. And now there's another layer: linguistic slips and memory issues. They might sound like small gaffes, but according to Siegel, these are signs of early dementia, even though they are intermittent.
The energy is so big, it's so like amorphous, it's all over the place. If you make donuts, it's the stove and the truck to bring them to wherever they're being delivered.
Dr. John Gartner, a longtime psychotherapist who's taught at Johns Hopkins, has also spoken out. He's been studying Trump's behavior for years and says there's absolutely no doubt that Trump is experiencing cognitive decline.
We'll have an economy based on wind. I never understood wind. I know windmills very much. I've studied it better than anybody. I know it's very expensive.
According to Gartner, when Donald Trump was younger in the 1980s, he was actually quite articulate. He spoke in polished paragraphs. Now he has difficulty even finishing a sentence.
The members of our armed forces, and you understand that very well, the members of our armed forces to immediately waive all applicable state taxes despite these obstacles, Karen.
The doctor explains he goes off on these ramblings where he is confabulating things, weird things in which he'll talk about Venezuelans and mental hospitals, and then he'll talk about sharks and batteries or the late, great Hannibal Lecter and Silence of the Lambs.
An insane asylum is a mental institution on steroids. Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen the Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter is a wonderful man.
Gartner also pointed out that Trump has started using made-up words like Critious instead of Christmas, or misses for missiles. At first glance, it might seem like a slip of the tongue, but when it happens over and over, experts say it's a red flag for brain damage or dementia.
Ever foistered women's basketball national champions, House and Senate lawmakers advising lawmakers.
And it's not just speech. Trump's physical movements have changed too. Remember when he struggled to walk down a ramp? Or when he had trouble lifting a glass with one hand? According to Gartner, these aren't isolated incidents.
When you ran out the healthy arms, you ran out of really healthy, they had great arms, but they ran out. It's called sports, it's called baseball in particular.
Behaviorally, Trump has become even more impulsive. Sure, some might argue he's always been unpredictable, but lately, the erratic decisions have ramped up.
You think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking.
Gartner also pointed out, he is much more impulsive and erratic now. He blurts things out. He makes impulsive decisions that he has to then reverse, like his many reversals on tariffs.
So we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals.
And if you've been watching his speeches lately, you might have noticed something feels off. He meanders, loses focus, and makes bizarre statements. Let's run through a few. In October 2023, he said Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban was the leader of Turkey. He also claimed Hungary shares a border with Russia. It doesn't.
Viktor Orban, anyone ever hear of him? He's probably like one of the strongest leaders anywhere in the world. And he's the leader of, right? He's the leader of Turkey, fronts on both Russia.
Then, during the 2024 campaign, he mixed up Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi, claimed he was running against Barack Obama, and said we were heading into World War II.
And we did with Obama. We won an election that everyone said couldn't be won.
Trump also said that Joan Rivers voted for him in 2016, despite the fact that she passed away in 2014. And in September 2024, he claimed the audience went crazy for him at a debate with Kamala Harris. That had no audience at all.
And they didn't correct her once, and they corrected me everything I said practically, I think 9 times or 11 times. And the audience was absolutely, they went crazy.
One more example. When asked at an economic forum about how he'd make childcare more affordable, Trump talked for nearly 2 minutes without ever answering the question.
I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, childcare is childcare.
What makes this even more concerning is that Trump has a family history of cognitive decline. His father, Fred Trump, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. To get a better sense of how this, along with his harsh upbringing, might be shaping his behavior today, we need to rewind to his early years. Born on June 14, 1946 in Queens, New York, Donald was the 4th of 5 children in the Trump family. His siblings include his older sisters Marianne and Elizabeth, his brother Fred, and his younger brother Robert. Donald's father, Fred Trump, was a tough-as-nails real estate developer with big ambitions and an even bigger ego. His mother, Marianne Trump, was a Scottish immigrant who arrived in the U.S. in 1930.
It's nice to be here. My mother never lost her feeling for Scotland. She loved Scotland more than anything.
The Trumps lived in Jamaica Estates, an upscale neighborhood in Queens. And while life in a fancy house might sound nice, inside those walls it was all about discipline, success, and, most importantly, making sure Fred Trump was impressed. Fred wasn't the doting type. When Donald did get his father's attention, it often came in the form of scolding, ridicule, or punishment.
He loved to work. He'd work on Saturdays, he'd work on Sundays. He just liked it. He'd go to church, but after church he'd go and work.
His mother, Mary, was distant and largely absent for the first year of his life. She became seriously ill when Trump was 2.5 years old, further distancing herself during his early years, leaving him without mother's love and nurturing every child needs. He grew up in an environment where emotions were a sign of weakness, and success was the only thing that mattered. And losing? That was never an option.
Winning is easy. Losing is never easy.
To make things worse, Donald had a front row seat to his father's mistreatment of his older brother, Freddie. Fred Trump had a clear idea of what a real man should be. Ruthless, ambitious, and completely dedicated to the family business. But Freddie was different. Sensitive, easygoing, and passionate about flying. Fred Sr. saw that as a total betrayal. He would mock Freddie, calling him a bus driver in the sky.
I learned myself. I had a brother, Fred. Great guy.
Fred berated his son constantly, belittling his ambitions, and made sure his younger sons understood one thing. Freddie was a failure. Donald, always eager to win his father's approval, took this lesson to heart, and being younger, he did not stand up for his brother.
I have like a bad personality compared to Fred.
In 1964, 18-year-old Donald and his younger brother Robert visited Freddie at his home in Marblehead, Massachusetts. By then, Freddie had distanced himself from the family business, choosing a career as a pilot, something their father saw as a disgrace. Donald wasted no time delivering Fred's cruel verdict. "Dad's really sick of you wasting your life," he told Freddie. Freddie's story didn't have a happy ending. The pressure and humiliation pushed him toward alcoholism, and by the age of 42, he was gone.
And he had a very, very, very tough life because of alcohol, believe me.
His death left a mark on Donald, who later claimed it was the reason he never touched alcohol.
And to this day, I've never had a drink. and I have no longing for it.
But it also reinforced the lesson he had learned from his father. Weakness is unacceptable, and failure is unforgivable. He was a pretty rough fellow when he was small, Fred once said about Donald. It was clear that Donald was not only the favorite child, but Fred saw him as his protege. That status came with a price. Fred was even harder on his youngest boy.
He's the fellow who threw an eraser and gave a teacher a black eye and would throw cake around a birthday party. So I can imagine him as being a little terror.
Determined to mold his son into a winner and strengthen him out, Fred sent 13-year-old Donald to the New York Military Academy, a place designed to instill obedience and resilience.
And I can tell you that one of the great choices I ever made in terms of success was the choice of going to NYMA, New York Military Academy.
For Fred, this wasn't just about fixing Donald's behavior. It was about toughening him up, reinforcing the values he lived by: dominance, obedience, and above all, winning. Gwenda Blair, author of The Trumps, put it simply: Fred Trump's message to his sons was, compete, win, be a killer. Do whatever it takes to win. At the academy, Donald thrived, not despite the strict discipline, but because of it. The drills, the hierarchy, the competition, it all mirrored the world his father had built at home. And just like Fred, Donald learned that power came from force and control.
I loved it. It was terrific training. It was tough, but it was good.
And here's where things get even darker. According to Mary Trump, Donald's father was a high-functioning sociopath. Her book Too Much and Never Enough paints a chilling picture. Fred was manipulative, cold, and obsessed with power. In order to cope, Mary wrote, Donald developed powerful but primitive defenses, marked by an increasing hostility to others. Even Donald himself has admitted the impact his father had on him. Journalist Tony Schwartz, who actually wrote The Art of the Deal, recalled Trump once saying, "That's why I'm so screwed up, because I had a father who pushed me so hard." It was a rare moment of self-awareness and vulnerability from a man who rarely acknowledges his past. Rudy Giuliani, one of Trump's most loyal defenders, once let something slip. When asked if Donald ever admits to making mistakes, Giuliani said, "The only way you would get an acknowledgement out of Donald that he may have not done it right, he would say, 'I think my dad would have done that differently.'" Think about that. Not, "I should have done it differently." Not, "I made a mistake." Just, "Maybe my dad would have handled it another way."
And he taught me so much. I mean, more than anything else, he taught me so much. And
Donald's relationship with his father took a turn as Fred began to show signs of dementia in the mid-1990s. People recalled how Fred, then in his late 80s, didn't recognize two of his children at a family gathering at Mar-a-Lago. When he did recognize Donald, Fred approached him with a picture of a Cadillac he wanted to buy, seeking his son's approval, as if he needed it. The man he had always seen as a powerful, unwavering authority, suddenly looking weak and vulnerable.
well, I think my greatest inspiration was my father, Fred C. Trump. He was a builder. He was a great guy. He was my friend.
Medical records later confirmed that Fred had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, which Donald reflected on in a 1997 interview with Playboy. He expressed his confusion about life's meaning, saying, "Seeing my father addled with Alzheimer's had left me wondering out loud about the senselessness of life."
If you start thinking about that, bad things happen.
At Fred's funeral in June 1999, however, Donald's response remained anything but empathetic. Instead of focusing on his father's life, he began his eulogy by talking about his own success, reflecting on the greatest year of his business career. This could be seen as a reflection of what Donald believed would have mattered most to his father: success. Fred, after all, had always emphasized the importance of winning, and Donald's business triumphs were likely the most significant way he felt connected to the legacy Fred had left behind.
We need competence. Enough with the niceness.
And what do you think? Did Fred's brutal parenting create the Trump we see in the public eye, or is there more to the story? How much of the man Trump became was truly his father's doing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.